Perhaps you've heard the line that Spring Garden Road is the busiest pedestrian street east of Montreal and north of Boston. Perhaps you've been shoulder to shoulder with other spring gardeners and thought, it might be nice to have a little more space. Yes, it's a busy street with pedestrians, businesses, cars, buses, and bikes all competing for space. At least it was.
Because Spring Garden isn't much of a road, or a garden right now. Unless you count this, or, this? Though, it is still bustling with pedestrians, and businesses remain open. It's pretty clear that something big is happening.
So Spring Garden, what's happening? If I were to describe what's happening really quickly, I'd say we're reducing the width of the roads, we're moving loading zones to side streets, and we're using that liberated space to improve conditions for pedestrians and transit users. But if I were to describe things in a little more detail and to throw in some visuals, I'd do this.
For as long as it's been around, Spring Garden Road has constantly adapted and changed shape. By 1949, the widespread adoption and evolution of motor vehicles had replaced transit buses and created a road that prioritized the movement of personal vehicles over the movement of public transit and the pleasure of pedestrians. Despite this, Spring Garden remains a critical corridor for Halifax transit buses. A typical weekday sees over 3,000 people get off a bus on Spring Garden Road between South Park and Barrington Street. The result of all this is a busy road with buses, cars, cyclists, delivery vehicles, taxis, and people all competing for a limited amount of space. Public consultation for the changes that are currently underway actually began way back in 2008. At that time, engagement found that people wanted a more pedestrian-focused street, to widen the sidewalks, to upgrade the existing bus stops, and to add more public art.
Though this engagement helped solidify a case to redesign Spring Garden Road, it didn't lead to any action. At least not initially.
Then, in 2016, the Halifax Economic Growth Plan called for the development of a long-term streetscaping program for the regional centre. The first street developed under this program was none other than Argyle Grafton, the success of which strengthened the case that redesigning better streets for people could be a really good thing. With this success, the HRM again focused its sights on Spring Garden.
In 2018, they launched another public engagement campaign and pilot called the Spring Garden Road Stoplet Project to test how a widened sidewalk and expanded bus stop could improve conditions for transit users and pedestrians, but also to talk to people and collect feedback about what they wanted for the future of the street.
This was a temporary installation, but it further solidified the case for redesigning Spring Garden to prioritize pedestrians over cars. And now, after years of planning, the imagined Spring Garden Road project has finally cracked concrete. The new Spring Garden will have sidewalks that are 57% wider. That's like trading a double scoop for a triple scoop. And that's a deal I'm taking every single time. Not only will sidewalks be wider, but they'll also be more attractive. All power lines are being moved underground, 29 new trees are being planted, along with 700 shrubs and perennials. Now that sounds like a garden. But if you're thinking that there won't be enough space for bike lanes, you'd be right. Protected bike lanes won't be a part of the new street. But that doesn't mean the street won't be accessible by bike from various side streets. It just means that Spring Garden Road itself will be prioritizing buses and pedestrians.
And if you want a sneak peek of what this is all going to look like, look no further than right here, in front of the Doyle and across from the library. This sidewalk was redesigned when the whole block was redeveloped.
This is a little bare compared to what the new Spring Garden is going to have, but notice the wide sidewalks? No power lines? Notice how that bus didn't need to swerve out of traffic to make it stop? Imagine a fancier version of this all the way to South Park Street.
There's a lot to be excited about on the other side of demolition and delay, though there are a few things we had to give up to get there.
The first and most obvious is that we're narrowing the road. This is going to make it slower for cars and more efficient for buses. Make no mistake, this is an intentional prioritization of transit users and pedestrians over those in personal vehicles. But this isn't just about car users. A really important aspect of this project is that the new road needs to support functional uses for local businesses. This includes the provision of adequate loading zones and accessible parking on nearby side streets. To create space for these, the HRM converted Dresden Row and Birmingham to one-way traffic. All in, this project displaced a total of 4 parking spots on Spring Garden Road, all of which, plus a few extra, have been replaced on the new one-way streets. And for the duration of the project, all Halifax transit routes that travel on Spring Garden Road will be rerouted at South Park and Queen Streets to travel on Morris Street, which is less than ideal.
The new Spring Garden Road won't have tram lines like in the old days or be exclusive to pedestrians like Argyle Street, but that doesn't mean it won't be a wonderful transformation given its context.
This project is a tangible example of the power of a collective vision, and that it is possible to build better places here in Halifax. And if it can happen once, or twice if we count Argyle, it can certainly happen again.